So I almost want to ask how you felt when you woke up without a penis, but
Still
you
have
didn't
it.
wake up.
Yeah.
And you still obviously have your penis.
Yeah.
I'm Leah Jazz, and I'm here with the second most famous penis in South Africa, apart from Malusi Gigaba. Jag,
Right, yeah.
welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
So recently your dick was trending on Twitter.
My balls.
Your balls were trending on
Yes.
Twitter. Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah.
Why were your balls trending on Twitter?
My balls were trending on Twitter because I had a vasectomy.
Shock,
Yeah.
horror. I actually have your original tweet here that has, to date, 17.4 thousand likes.
Yeah.
The tweet says, I did it. I just got my irreversible vasectomy done. I'm 29, unmarried, no children, and no intention of ever having any. I feel like that much was
Yeah.
implied. I've wanted this for years. It's surreal. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're young. 29 is quite young to commit to an irreversible. Is there a difference between a reversible and an irreversible vasectomy?
Yeah, the procedure is slightly different in the sense that I guess the part of the vas deferens that they cut out and what they do to the tips is different. With the irreversible procedure, they solder the tips shut, so that's it, forever. It's burned, it's closed. Whereas with the reversible option, it's bent in and tied, so you have the option of untying and then trying to reattach, which is not, it doesn't present a high level of success, but it's an option, and it depreciates each year that you don't do the reattachment.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And you say you've wanted this for years.
Yeah.
For what reason?
So I've always known that I just have absolutely no interest in having children. That's been part of who I am and my personality forever, in the sense that there's no point during my childhood, teenage years, early adulthood where I had that dream of a family set up with 2.4 kids and that whole thing. So I knew that at some point I'd want to make it impossible to even end up in that situation, which is then where the vasectomy came in. So I did not have that interest.
So what's the process like? You decided you wanted it. How did you go about finding a doctor who would do the surgery on you?
So the first part of the process was consulting with my own MD. I just consulted on a general basis, spoke about the fact that I've been meaning to have a vasectomy done for a long time, but I don't know where to start. So she recommended a urologist that she recommends her clients to. But then that's when I ran into the first problem of calling that one and many others who take the private hospital approach, which is an incredibly expensive way of having a vasectomy done. The average between them was about 50,000 for the procedure to be done. Yeah. And I just knew that I would not be able to afford that.
No, honestly,
Yeah.
school fees are cheaper.
Yeah. So 50,000, that was the average answer I got. The cheapest I got as an offer was 25, but that was still pretty steep. So I thought that the dream was dead for a second until my friend, who's tagged in the tweet, then found reproductive choices in Centurion. So this is a fertility center generally dealing with women's problems, but on Wednesdays and Thursdays, a urologist comes in to do their vasectomies for 2 hours. So we found that place, and that place was 5,500. So I was like, okay, that's way more reasonable. I'm going there.
Did you look into public healthcare as an option?
I did. I didn't find any solutions there.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I heard, and obviously I don't know if this is true or not, but I heard that a vasectomy is free at a government hospital.
Is it?
That's what I've heard, but I
Yeah.
mean, obviously you're the one who's been on the journey.
Yeah.
In your consultations with urologists, did you have any pushback? Did they ask you any kinds of questions about how sure you were?
So no pushback whatsoever for me.
None.
Which is an important part of the conversation, because I know that that's the deal, right?
Yeah.
Is that all that happened is that I called in to Reproductive Choices. I told them that I wanted to do this. They said, okay, what day, what time? I chose the day, I chose the time. On the day of the consultation, just skipping ahead, all that was done was being consulted about what the procedure entails. Not a single question about
Your
what
wife.
not what my partner wants, not what my hopes are, not how old I am. It's just a simple, you've come in, you're going to do the payment, you're going to be sent in for the procedure. No pushback whatsoever.
That is wild to me, because I know women who have looked into permanent sterilization who almost always get asked, how old are you? Have you had children? You might change your mind. What does your partner think? Even when they don't have partners, that some imaginary future husband might want to have kids, and then what are you going to do? None of that happened to you.
None of that. Yeah. There's none of that, this is unfair to your future wife kind of thing. Yeah.
Just goes to show, right? Men are just not seen as just breeding machines.
Yeah.
You can just be a human being. Love that for you. I really love that reproductive choice was just available to you. And you say 5,500 Rand?
Yeah.
It's not unaffordable, not in the context of how much nappies and babies end up costing in the future. You then posted about it on Twitter. Actually, before we get to what you posted on Twitter, what did they put you under? What happened when you got to the clinic?
So that's kind of the difference between doing the private hospital route and doing this outpatient procedure, is that all of the outpatient procedures are just under local anesthesia. So you're not put under.
You were awake the whole time? Did they have a screen?
So, no.
Oh my gosh.
There's no screen, but because of the angle, you're lying flat, right?
I'm so stressed for you.
You're lying flat. It's local anesthesia. It's straight into the scrotum.
Right. Needles. So you feel the needle going into.
Yeah. You feel the needle going in. Because the structure of how it's done is that you're lying flat. You've got your shirt on, but everything else is off. Lying flat. They have this sort of paper thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know the medical term for it, but they just have a cutout in it where they pull your scrotum through there to work on.
It's like they're trying to give you the essence of dignity, when actually like the only part that matters is just,
exactly.
Like, thanks for covering my thighs and keeping it discreet.
The part that doesn't matter. My thighs are seen all the time.
It's the awkward tan lines, really. You can't have a urologist seeing those.
So just a little bit of covering. They pull your sac through that, and then they tell you, okay, we're going to do the needle bit now. So needle straight in, both sides.
That must have been quite painful.
It's not that bad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a sharp pain, but it's very localized. It's a second, and then that's the anesthesia, so you're fine. Yeah, that's not at all the worst part.
Okay, dentists are worse.
Dentists are way worse.
Okay.
So straight anesthesia, just like that. You're awake the whole time, and everything is numbed except the vas itself.
Interesting. So okay, for those who don't know what actually happens during a vasectomy, or even anything about urology, what is the vas?
Okay, so it is, I guess, a big part of the discussion, because a lot of the kickback on Twitter was people misunderstanding
what the vasectomy
actually is. And the way that I've described it for everyone is just that, imagine that from each testicle going through to the penis are two roads, right? There's one road that carries 95% of the traffic and one road that has 5% of the traffic. That's the vas. We're cutting that road out. That's the sperm road, essentially. The rest of your semen still goes through as the 95%. So your emission is no different in terms of experience. The vas is just that one tube that we're nipping from both sides, no longer applicable, but it's just 5% of the overall fluid that comes out.
Okay, so you're on the table. Your balls are numb.
Yeah.
The vas deferens is still...
Yeah, it feels.
It feels the nerve endings inside there. Like you can feel it.
Yeah, it's like a tube, essentially.
Okay.
So the urologist then locates that tube.
Sorry if I'm being too specific here, but do they have to make an incision into the scrotum at this point in order to locate said vas?
No. So they can feel it through the skin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
they locate it over the skin until it's nipped over the skin, and then they'll make the incision.
Okay.
Because now they know where it is.
Right.
So they cut into the skin, and then they clip the vas and pull it out through the hole. And that bit is the fun bit, because you feel that.
Yeah.
You're not numbed in that respect.
Why don't they numb the vas deferens? Is that
it's something about how the anesthesia itself works and how they, I guess, put it into the body. I'm not entirely sure about that bit, because I did ask why we can't just numb that, and they're just like, we just don't. I don't know, but it's not numbed is the point.
Also, just a side note, any reproductive surgery when it comes to people with vaginas or vulvas, also like IUD insertion, there's no anesthetic. It's just like, cheers,
so
you're done,
we're
right? So I just,
in that,
like, I'm not taking any joy in hearing about your pain, but there is a small part of me that's like, I'm glad some men have experienced just a fraction of the kind of invasive pain that women go through. Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt. Please, I'm enthralled by this story. They grab the vas deferens.
Yeah.
Make the little incision and then.
Yeah, since it's a little tube, essentially you pull it out and twist it so you've got enough of it, like spaghetti, basically. Okay. Yeah. And what they'll then do is just like clip two sides of it and then remove the bit in the middle.
Okay.
So let's say like an inch is removed, kind of thing. And then solder those tips and let them slip back into the scrotum.
Oh.
So yeah, the highway is then disrupted in that respect. And then for this procedure, the one that's outpatient, they go through the same incision to the other side to grab the other vas, because it's two, right?
Right.
So they grab that one and put it through the same incision and then repeat the procedure. So all they'll do is just walk around to the other side, grab it through the same incision, and then do the nips, snip that part of it out, and then solder the tips, put it back in, and then stitch it all shut. So you go through essentially two bits of the highest points of pain, which is when they're snipping the vas itself.
Yes.
And look, there are different ways that men have described how that feels. When I was consulting with the nurse ahead of the procedure, she said that some of them claim that it's basically like being kicked by a horse in the balls.
Which totally didn't put you off.
It didn't, no. I was like, I'm doing this regardless. I did
Yeah.
not care about the pain.
Yeah.
I knew that I wanted to do this. So nothing was going to deter me. She could have described it as the worst pain imaginable. I still would have done it because it's a passing pain. It's really just 5-10 seconds at most. And then you're already going on to the other part of it. I think the only thing for me that was difficult was having had the first vas done, knowing now what the second one is going to be like. You know, I wish it was just one tube, one spike of pain, and then it's over, but you have to do it twice. So outside of that, I was like, I don't care. Kick me in, you know, the balls as a horse, then I'll take it. It's more important to secure my future, have control over my body. So I went through with it.
And did it feel like a horse was kicking you in the balls?
Not for me.
Okay.
So I rank it as an 8 out of 10 for me personally. It's not, when it happened, I knew then that I could have handled more. It still hurt. It was painful, but I was like, oh, okay, that was bad, but I didn't die.
Right.
And that's important, is that it's not as bad as you might psych yourself up to think it is. And that's important to keep in mind.
Do you have tattoos?
No, I don't.
Okay. I wanted to like pain scale.
Yeah, no tattoos, no piercings. So I can't compare it on that level. So you could say also I'm new to it in that respect.
You could say you're new to it. I'm so sorry.
Muted, yeah.
How big is the incision?
The incision itself is probably like an inch. It's not big at all.
That feels quite big.
I mean, okay, I don't know why I said an inch.
Is
like
it directly in the center of, sorry if I'm being too specific.
No, go ahead.
Is it sort of, so the balls, right? Is it kind of directly in the center?
No.
On one side?
So it's a long, I don't know if you are aware of kind of like that weird sort of meeting of skin line.
Yes.
Yeah. It's along that line. So essentially,
that way. Okay.
So where that line is, they make the incision there so that as you heal, it sort of conforms to the folds of your skin around that line.
Right, so there's no additional scarring or anything.
No, it's going to look natural. You'd have to know what you're looking out for to spot it. And I mean, I'm only 5 days into my healing process, but right now, when I'm doing a bandage change, I have to look specifically for the spot of thing. It doesn't stick out at all.
Okay, so it's
so
not...
a partner who's not aware of this wouldn't know.
Would never know.
Yeah.
And so you're obviously bandaged up on the day. How long are you expected to stay in bandages?
Bandage process is at most like 6 days, really.
Okay, so you're almost out of the woods.
Yeah, tomorrow's my last day of bandages.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So I almost want to ask how you felt when you woke up without a penis, but
Still
you didn't wake up.
Yeah.
And you still obviously have your penis.
Yeah.
Because then you started posting about it on Twitter.
I posted while I was sitting just after the procedure was done. It was like 10 minutes after.
You were just so excited to get it out
I was just like, guys, I did it, you know, because I thought I was just updating my friends who knew that I'd be doing this. So for me, I could not have anticipated the response because I'm not, breaking new ground here. Many men have already had this done.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, my post is the post that went viral. And then I was like, okay, so that's happening. I'm just going to use this platform to educate more men about it, because from those responses, it was clear that education is needed.
Yes, because it seems like South African men think that either your penis is gone, your balls are gone, or you're never going to be able to ejaculate.
Yes.
None of which are true.
Those are the common things. And none of which are true.
Yeah. Do you remember, do you have screenshots, or do you have any significant responses that really stood out to you?
It's a two-pronged thing. There's the common response of just men being like, wow, you've just, given up your balls. And there's that conflating of, my vasectomy with castration. That has come up a lot. And it's just, I don't know why. I don't understand why so many men think I'm now essentially a eunuch, because that's what I've been told. I've had a lot of those DMs where they're like, bit radical for you to, have your balls cut off. I'm like, but I didn't. I still have them. They're right there.
That's so strange. Why do you think men think that?
Only one thing I could assume is that because, as we're covering essentially in this conversation, the duty of birth control has been on women. Men have just never had to be educated about vasectomies to begin with. So when I had that post saying that I'm essentially rendering myself infertile, the assumption is just obviously removing the balls then. I mean, we're aware of, the idea of eunuchs from Game of Thrones and that sort of thing. So it's so easy to assume, when you don't know, that when I say I've been rendered infertile, I mean that I've had a castration done, which is not at all the case.
Yeah. Not at all. A lot of people on Twitter seem to think that, and I wonder if you think this, the onus for fertility or birth planning or family planning often comes down to women.
Yeah.
And the various options that are available, there are far more options available to people with ovarian reproductive systems, obviously, than there are. Do you feel, and let me think about how I want to word this, I think little girls in particular are grown up and raised with baby dolls and kind of being told that one day they're going to grow up to be mothers. And I think the idea of motherhood has been placed on the idea of femininity as a sort of prerequisite. Do you feel in some way that the response to your sterilization has to do with the fact that people feel like parenting is a responsibility, a natural order of things, I don't know what the right word is, an expectation?
Very much so, yeah. What I got a lot of was just the response of, but this is a core part of the human experience. How do you go through the human experience without parenthood, without childbirth, raising a family, and that sort of thing? And for a lot of people, it is simply unimaginable to not take that as one of the steps of life as you go through life. It's just anticipated that at some point you will get married, you will have children, your own biological children, by the way.
Yeah.
Because that's all that this boils down to, is that I cannot have my own biological children anymore. And that seemed to peeve people because they just simply could not imagine any other way. It's just a part of our culture that we're expected to, at some point, decide to have children and do the standard approach to life.
And I think further on from that, motherhood has been placed as a defining characteristic of femininity. Do you feel that some of the responses were because people think that a lack of fatherhood therefore equals a lack of masculinity, or a lack of sperm in your semen, to boil it really down to the essence of it, is a lack of masculinity? Yeah,
I mean, I could boil it down even further and just go to the ability to impregnate is a part of masculinity, because that's really what men were complaining about. Just the fact that, like, why would you let go of that power is what it seemed like to me, because it wasn't really, not everyone was coming from the angle of saying, but this is going to be terrible for your future spouse or whatever it is. It wasn't about you're ruining the family unit. It was just, why would you let go of that ability? They weren't concerned about me being a present good father. They were concerned about the fact that I just no longer will be transmitting sperm, so I therefore cannot impregnate anyone. It's just holding on to the fact that you have that control.
Do you think that men value that ability to impregnate as a sense of power over women?
I think so. I mean, I had, on the same day that my tweet was going viral, I saw responses where someone was sharing a tweet where a guy had said something along the lines of, when she's on a fitness journey and you get her pregnant just to ruin it. So clearly that idea exists because that was a popular tweet going off on its own. That was just then shown to me, where I'd responded to it and I was like, but that's literally just terrorism on a bodily autonomy level. It has to be an idea that exists, that at any point you could just refuse to pull out and impregnate someone and completely change the course of their life.
And your life be largely unaffected if you wanted it to.
Largely unaffected. And we know that because deadbeats are a thing.
Yeah.
You could just carry on and you could impregnate someone or a new woman every day while they have to go through at least, those months of, inactivity forced through the pregnancy. Whereas as a man, you can just carry on leaving children wherever you want.
It's really interesting that you mentioned bodily autonomy, because I feel that a large portion of the negative response to your tweets has involved, firstly, a disregard for your bodily autonomy and the autonomy of people that you may potentially impregnate in the future. Do you think that South Africans in general have a disregard for bodily autonomy?
Yeah, it's been a big part of the conversation, where the first part is, it's my body and I can do what I want with it. As long as it harms no one, I can make the decisions that I find important for me, which is the first step, which is why none of this has bothered me in terms of the negative response, because what are you going to do? It's done now. They sold it shut. That's it. I don't control the country's population with my one sack. So it's over in that respect. But the other side of it is just the fact that seeing people make those decisions, seeing people continue to control their bodies more independently seems to upset people. And I don't get that. It's a part of our culture where a lot of people's positive responses were just saying, but why does this bother you so much? Just a general question of, why are you so concerned with another man's nuts? And obviously there's no response to that. Like, you're still able to go out and procreate. That's fine for you. I did not come out and share this with some agenda to render everybody infertile. I'm not some villain who's trying to kill off humanity. I'm sharing my story, and also hoping that for anyone who is considering this, then they could understand from a first-hand account how it functions, and then maybe see that it's normal, it's okay to do, it's safe, and then you lift that burden off of everybody else that you will encounter. It makes so much more sense.
How did you feel seeing Fikile Mbalula reply to your tweet?
So it was hilarious and disappointing, because
go fix the roads, bro.
Yeah, like literally, that's what everyone was like, you're focused on the wrong holes, because our roads are messed. I'm driving home from a vasectomy, I'm tender as hell, and I'm dodging potholes because of you, and you're on the internet going off about my vasectomy. Like, I don't. That's tragic.
That is tragic. Yeah.
He's got time to, reply with "you, meneer" to me about my vasectomy instead of focusing on his job. Yeah.
That's hilarious. Is there anything that you wish you knew before you went into your procedure?
I did my research. I knew how this would function. I knew which parts would be painful. I knew how long the recovery would take. All that was being done essentially was an affirmation of the research that I had done already. So no part of it has been surprising in that respect. I guess the one thing I didn't know was the part of healing where I have to avoid erections for 10 days, because dodging that is a mission.
Yeah, I mean, men or people with penises generally wake up.
Yeah. I mean, erections are happening all the time for all kinds of reasons. Because I think a lot of people, anyone who has not had to navigate having a penis, might miss the fact that it's not just erect for sexual reasons.
Yes.
There are so many reasons it happens. One of the common ones is just needing to pee. If you have not urinated for a long enough period of time, you'll start to experience very persistent erections, and that's just your body's signal for you to go and urinate. It's also what stops you from peeing in your sleep.
Right.
You have those like intermittent sort of every 90 minutes during your sleep cycle, you'll experience an erection, and it's just your body regulating that so that you don't pee in your sleep. So
how do you prevent an erection? If you're not allowed to have one for 10 days, all of those things considered, how do you make it stop?
all that you can really do is just pee as much as possible. Pee as much as possible before you sleep as well, to sort of prevent that. But like, my sleep was patchy for the first 2 or so days.
Is it very painful?
It's not very painful. It's very uncomfortable, slipping into pain. But because you either wake up or you are awake and you feel it, you respond to it. You do whatever you need to do.
Right.
You flex your muscles, whatever it is. Yeah, no flicking. Enough of that. Yeah, so a bit of flexing, making sure you've peed. Look, I haven't had to experience a full-on erection in this. I've been careful because I'm one of those people who follows doctor's orders. So I've been careful about that, and I am hyper cautious about this as a person anyway. If that's the instruction, that's what I'm going to follow, you know. So it's been okay for me in that respect. Nothing has gone wrong is what I'm saying in that regard. Like, look, we're on the internet, we're engaging with people.
Twitter is Twitter.
Yeah, slip-ups are going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's just, do take care to follow the rule is the idea. And I was not aware of that. And 10 days is a long time, because today is only like 5.5 days in.
10 days is a long time.
It's a long time to actively avoid them.
Yeah, because you probably have to think a lot about it. And it's like laughing when you're like, I shouldn't be laughing right now.
Exactly,
it just makes you want to laugh even more.
Yeah.
Sure, that's wild. Did you get to have any time off work before and after your procedure?
Yeah. So the doctor I went to booked me off for, I guess it's roughly like 6-ish or so days. There's the immediate period, which is those crucial 3 days where it's bed rest and ice pack. You cannot do anything in that period of time. And then after that, you slip into the stage where you start your walking around a bit, sitting for a bit, because sitting is something that becomes very uncomfortable. So sitting for a while as well, spending some time standing in, I don't know, the kitchen or whatnot, you know.
Major national interviews.
Exactly, yeah. Being a bit more mobile. And then you have the sort of like 7-day period where you're out of the stitches range, you're out of the bandage range, you're out of the wearing tight underwear range, and then 10-day period where after that you're judging your body and discomfort levels, because you can then start engaging in sexual activity, having your first series of ejaculations, because you're going to have to do at least 20 before the procedure is complete, because there's a final stage to it. I don't know if you're aware of that part of things.
I have so many questions. First of all, tight underwear?
Yeah. So what you'll be made aware of before the procedure is that buy a couple of Speedos and come to the procedure wearing one, because a Speedo is going to hold everything together. You do not want free-flowing movement.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you don't. Because you're going to be all stitched up. Right. And also, the less free-flowing movement you have, the less chance of just unwanted erections showing up. An erection is more likely in boxers than it is in a Speedo, essentially.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on this now. So to go from 10 days of no erections to 20 just popping out the ejaculations,
yeah.
That's going to be a swing.
It is going to be work.
I imagine the first few will be easy enough, but
after
10 days, I mean. So is that to make sure that the sperm itself is gone?
Yeah. Because remember, as I mentioned, since it's a tube going all the way through, you want to clear that highway out. So all of the sperm that would have been lingering in there, some of which is now dead, some still alive because it lives for a couple of days, you want to clear out. So the global standard is just at least 20 ejaculations before the ejaculations that are going to be checked at a laboratory for any presence of dead or live sperm.
Okay.
So you need to have, whatever you do, it's up to you in terms of your pain. You could just have full-on sex, that's fine. Obviously still with contraceptives, because you're not yet cleared.
You don't know, yes.
Yeah. So you could have sex, you could just be masturbating, whatever it is. Keep count, do your minimum 20. The worst places will tell you 40 to be safe, but at least 20 as a minimum. So you could check your 21st. The 21st, straight into a tube. That one definitely has to be masturbation, because nothing can contaminate it. So masturbate straight into a tube, has to be checked within an hour at a lab.
So would you go to the lab?
Probably.
Do the thing,
it's best to do it at the lab. Yeah. Then you're not stuck in traffic worrying about your load. You can just make sure.
In the coffee cup holder, just there.
Yeah, just there, right? Yeah. So you can. So it's best to do it at the lab, straight into the cup. They take it through. They check because it has to be no live sperm, but also no dead sperm. It needs to be 100% clear, 0% sperm content of any kind.
Sperm free.
Sperm free, yeah. And only at that point can you then declare that you're infertile. I mean, I've been referring to this entire journey as my infertility journey, but it's not done yet.
Yes.
I still have to get that lab result that says 0% sperm, then you're good to go. Some people take weeks, other people take months. It differs. But if your procedure was handled properly, then you're good to go. So you would in any case already know, because if you have your first result and then you're like, we've got like 10%, it's you're going in the right direction, because that's not much, you know. But if they're like, this looks like a full load, there are swimmers there active partying, then the procedure has failed. But I mean, there's like a 3% chance of it failing.
Yeah, that seems quite unlikely if it's especially the irreversible type.
Yeah, that's why I went for that one. I was like, I want to make sure.
Okay, so you have absolutely no doubt.
Yeah.
None whatsoever. You're completely sure. And I think that is a prerequisite for getting a procedure like that.
Yeah. I mean, they won't question you because,
which is
like I mentioned,
I
know. And I keep emphasizing that because that's the big part of the conversation, is how difficult is it to get this done compared to what anyone who wants to have a hysterectomy done has to go through. And it's just the fact that there are no questions about how sure you are. I'm an adult, I'm 29, I can make these decisions. So when I got there, it was just as simple as explaining the procedure, giving me my relaxants and being like, all right, get up there and get the snip. It's really that simple. So,
and how long would you say from start to kind of 20 shots later as a finish, how long is that procedure?
So I guess the next stage is really going to depend on how long I take to have my 20 emissions. Yeah.
I suppose you can take your time.
Yeah, you could take your time.
But if you're in a rush.
Yeah, because the time element doesn't change anything, right? We're just making sure that you've cleaned it out, you've flushed it out as much as possible.
Yeah.
So if you take 6 months to do it, it's up to you. If I get them all out in 4 days, it's up to me as well.
One day.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just about the flush, because we're just making sure that the procedure is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So it could be, a month, it could be 3. I don't know. It varies with each person. I've had responses to my tweet where some guys said, yeah, I was given the all clear about 6 weeks in. Other guys were like, I was done in a month. So for me, I'm roughly a week into this thing. So from essentially Saturday onwards, I'll be able to start the process of the ejaculations.
Your genitals normally.
Yeah. Yeah, mostly normally.
Starting the ejaculation process. I think it's so important to talk about that, because again, it seems, even if people know that you're not being castrated or having your dick cut off, it seems people still think that you cannot ejaculate.
Yeah.
But that's completely false.
It's completely false, yeah.
Not only can you ejaculate, you absolutely have to, at least 20 times.
Yeah, you're going to be forced to have a good time.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah. Guaranteed at least 20 times, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for being so open and honest about your journey. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
If there is anyone watching this or listening to this who is considering getting the snip, what would you say to them?
So the consistent advice that I've given to anyone considering this is the same as the process I went through, which is just, first of all, do you know yourself and what you want when it comes to family and parenthood? I've always known, it's been consistent for me, so there was no question about how the rest of my life would filter into that. So it's just, do you know now that, infertility works for you, or just the 2 or 3 children you already have are it for your structure? Because I think a big part of this conversation that we probably also miss is that the response was bigger also because I do not have children or in any case. So I'm ensuring that I just never have children at all. Whereas there are people getting their vasectomies done because their family planning is done.
Yeah.
If you've had your 2 or 3 children, then you're removing the burden from the other spouse. You're removing the burden from the woman who's had to be on birth control because you're still, building your family, which is then reasonable. But now it's like you've got the rest of your lives, take on that burden, remove that burden of, all the hormonal changes that have to be dealt with and that sort of thing. So just knowing that your decision is true to what you want now and what you foresee in your future in terms of your life. That's all you need to know, and then doing the research in terms of the procedure, because then it's just about which way you're going to do it, really. All the information is out there. I'm sharing as much about it as I can. It's all freely available online. I wouldn't suggest it, but you can even watch videos of it being done on YouTube, which I did afterwards. And I was glad I didn't do it before, because it was horrifying.
So don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Ask about it, but don't watch. But all the resources are there. All that matters is that you know, and everyone else will just, filter into that. It's your body, it's your choice, it's how you want to manage, your family planning in future. So it's really that simple.
Amazing. And you say that a lot of the questions people ask you are, what happens if you meet the one?
Yeah.
And they want kids.
Yeah. So I get that question a lot. And what I always say to it is just, if I was meeting the one, they would have to be on the same page with me about this. They wouldn't be the one if we had to argue about family planning and what we want in terms of children. So that question does not apply to me, especially now that this whole thing has blown up and, so many people know.
So many people care about your scrotum right now.
So many people care right now. And so many people know on a daily basis what's happening with it.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I can't even lie about it in any case at this point. So I wouldn't have somebody coming into my life who expects to build a family and is later disappointed. I'm upfront about it because I don't have that concern. So we wouldn't end up, being perfect partners. The one just wouldn't have this problem. They would love me because they accept that about me. Yeah.
Thank you so much for being so open and honest about your procedure and about your scrotum on this national platform, and for talking to me. I think it's so important just to get some information out there, because clearly from what we've seen on Twitter, people have no idea what goes into the procedure of a vasectomy, what the consequences are or could be, or the positives are or could be. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for giving this conversation a bigger platform.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure. Thank you. I feel like I want to shake your hand.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks.